In this video, I'm going to share with you the two ways that I'm using Frase. The first way is I use it to generate article briefs for my clients that I'm consulting with or for writers that I'm working with. The second way is to optimize existing content that's already out there. So we're going to get started with the article briefs. And for this video, there are a lot of, if you're not familiar with Frase, there's a lot of tutorial videos out there, a lot of videos that go really in depth on all the features and things you can do with Frase. They're constantly coming out with updates and adding new things. So I'm not going to make this so much a tutorial video. I'm going to kind of gloss over a few things. This isn't designed to be a Frase tutorial. Just showing that how I'm using Frase. So if you're not familiar with Frase and want to learn more in depth about how to use it, there's a lot of videos out there. You can go check those out. So first thing we're going to do to generate an article brief is we're going to go to the new document and we're going to put in the search query that this document is going to be about. So let's say we're going to do an article about, let's do about Scrum. Actually, let's just do Agile project management. And there's some advanced settings. I'm not using any of those for those. They're more for if I was targeting, I have this set to target in the United States. If I was targeting a different country or the content was generated for that, then we would do that. But for this, we're just going to hit the create document. What Frase does is it pulls the top 20 results for the search query that you give it. So it pulled them, but it hasn't analyzed them yet. You have to hit this let's go button first. And then it's going to go through and analyze each of those top 20 results and pull in some information from them. Now, I don't like to use the full top 20. I think it's too many search results. Usually, I'm really concerned with the top ranking results. So a lot of times, I'll just use like top 5, top 7. Rarely do I do anything past the top 10. And you can select that by if you click up here, you can narrow it down to the top 10. And it shows you the top 20 results here. You can pick and choose which ones you want. Now, normally, I'm not going to do it in this video because it takes a little bit of time, but I would go through and take a look at each of these search results to make sure that the content on this page is actually matching what I want, the content that I want to create. Sometimes for some topics, like for example, we're doing Agile project management here. Sometimes pages will show up in the search result that maybe is just a template for getting started with Agile project management. And that would be a piece of content that doesn't necessarily match what I'm trying to create here. So I wouldn't use that. So you can pick and choose which results you want. And if there's any that you don't like or sometimes you'll see an outlier in the content that just doesn't quite fit, I'll uncheck those. And then we'll tell Frase to go ahead and run its analysis again. Now for a content brief, you can create your own templates and I'll leave that up to you. A lot of times I just use this automated brief option. I keep all these selected except it depends on what I'm writing. Sometimes I use the statistics, sometimes I don't. For Agile project management, this piece of content, I don't think statistics are necessarily going to be useful. If I was writing about something where quoting statistics made more sense, I would include that. So if we were doing something about like the economic forecast for 2022, or we're doing something to say about e-commerce marketing heading into the new year, quoting statistics about how many people are shopping online and things like that might be useful for the piece of content. So then I would include the statistics, and this is going to pull any stats it finds in the articles that I told it to analyze, so the top 10 in this case. I really don't use the hyperlinks. It'll list out places that the articles are linking out to. I don't really use that. So we'll go ahead and insert the brief in here. Okay. And what I use, so for the goal, I would write some sort of a brief synopsis of what this piece of content should be about, what it should include, and that's to pass on to whoever's going to be writing the article so they understand the scope of what I want written. Target audience I'll also include because that can sometimes help the writer. For something like this, I would want to target, say, project managers, um, and anyone interested in learning about agile project management. Deadline, I really don't use that. We use Monday.com for our project management. And if we have deadlines on content, we assign them inside of there. So I don't really worry about this. Project owner, again, I don't worry about that. The word count, I will go through and you can see each of the results here. I'll go through and look at what the results have. And one thing I'm looking for, so you saw the first two, this has 1,200 words, this has around 1,400 words. This one has 2.6, so 2,600 words, 2,500, 3,400. So I'm looking for kind of like outliers, like 3,400 right now sort of sticks out. 3,800, 2,000, 1.4, 800. Okay, so there's this summary box up here, but because there's one that had 3,400, one had 3,800, it's probably skewing the number upwards a little bit. So I would probably tell the writer to do something around 1,400 to 1,600 words for this. And I talk to my writers or anyone that's writing that I'm consulting with and explain to them that the target word count is not really a hard and fast rule for me. It's just kind of something to sort of shoot for. Or if you have content writers, a lot of times writers, you have to pay them by the word, so they need some sort of number to shoot for. But I would tell my writers, if you need to go to 1,800 words or 2,000 words to write a good article and cover the topic and cover everything I ask you to cover, then go ahead and do that. Let me know, ahead of time if we're working with a budget, I can plan accordingly. But I don't really have a hard and fast rule. On the other hand, I don't want them to give me an article that's 300 words. So not a hard and fast rule, but it just gives them something to shoot for. Now, for me, the people also ask section is really important on a lot of topics and a lot of pieces of content that we use. I'll actually tell the writers to use as many of these as you can as headings. Whenever I see people also ask in a search result, I want to use as many of those as I can as headings in the actual content. Now, they may not be H2 headings. They might fall under a subheading. We may put some of them into like a frequently asked questions about the topic, like a FAQ section. And in fact, I like when they're in an FAQ section and then we put FAQ schema around them. But basically, Google is telling, I like to use these as headings and answer the questions, putting content under them. I feel like it gives a more complete article, and it gives an article. To me, the people also ask thing is Google kind of telling you what kind of content you may want to include in your article. So I like to use as many of these as I can. Now, some of these are going to overlap, and some of them, like, some of them also, okay, some of them are not going to make sense. Like, what is a product management? That one I'm going to get rid of. The rest of these are actually pretty decent. And some of them aren't going to make sense. Like, what is project management? That's not a great one. Difference between PMP and Agile, I don't really want included for this article. That one's not bad. Okay, so not too bad. Now, one thing I'll also do in a separate tab often is I will do closely related searches. So I might do something, we're doing Agile project management. I might also do a search, what is Agile project management? And see what people also ask questions show up in that SERP, and then copy them over into here to include. So I'll have a basic heading structure that I'll give to the writer in here based off of the people also ask. Now, sometimes I leave it up to the writers to pick some of the headings, but again, I'm usually in contact with the writers and they understand what I want and how I want them to use these, and we'll fill these in. So they don't have to use necessarily every single one, but I like them to use as many of these as they can. The SERP section, this is pulling those top 10 results. So it's just giving the links to those top 10 results. And what I will tell the writers is they can use these as reference points for information about the topic. So if they're not entirely familiar with the topic, these are top ranking pages they can go look at to get familiar with the topic. So I'll include a note, something like that. And then down here, what Frase does is it pulls the top 20 most frequently used topics, or if you want to call them clusters or entities, pulls the top 20. I will go through this list and just see, if there's anything that I don't want included. Like sometimes for a topic like project management, a specific product will pop, like Asana would pop up in the list, or Monday or ClickUp or something like that might pop up, and I don't necessarily, unless we're doing writing for one of those companies, I wouldn't want the writer to mention those, or I may not want the writer to mention those. So I would edit this list as I see fit. And then it also organizes them by topic clusters. So under projects, it'll show all the different entities that are used for that. What I tell the writers usually is use as many of these terms in the content as you can. So I just tell them I want to make sure that they're mentioning these entities in their content. And I'll go through and again, I'll edit some of this and make some changes based on what I think should be in there, and what, if there's anything that I don't think needs to be in there, I'll get rid of those. And then the other thing I look at is these are headers that it pulled from those top search results that Frase feels may be important or may be useful. I'll take a look. If there's something that I really like, I will pull this out and make a note of it for the writer that, hey, I try to use this header, this as a heading in your content. This particular one, there's nothing here I'm really seeing that I like. So in this case, I would just delete these. I don't really care for any of those. And then questions, it's pulling questions that it found in the search results I told it to answer. So I'll also look at these, kind of similar to the people also ask section. There may be some of these that I like and I want content writer to use, and I will make note of that, or I might bold these and say, hey, try to include this. This particular case, something like this, I want them to hit. This is useless, so I'd get rid of that. This is repeated twice, so we can get rid of that. I don't really think we need a Gantt chart, anything about a Gantt chart in there. And then what is Agile Project Management? Repeated again. And that's probably one we want to hit. So that's pretty much what I do for the brief. Now, usually I have writers that I'm working with regularly or clients that I'm consulting with regularly. So we go through this and I explain these sections to them so they kind of know what I'm looking for when I'm giving this over to them. But that's how I quickly create a brief that I can pass along to the writers. Now, in the other case, if we were looking to optimize existing content, what we would do, and actually I'm going to go with a new document for this. And select the optimize existing content. Now, this, you can take the content that a writer gave you and copy and paste it in here, or you can import it from existing content from a URL. So let's say we're doing what is Agile Project Management. And for this one, I'm just going to pull a search result. from Google. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to page 3 because I don't want one of the top ranking search results are probably going to hit all the, a lot of the points. So I want to pull something that's not ranking as well. Let's see what Monday has here. Kind of surprised that they're not ranking better for this. Yeah, it's not a great piece. Okay, we'll just go with this one. So what we do is just copy and paste the URL in here, and Frase is going to attempt to pull all the content from that page. And you may have to go through and edit some of this or see what it pulls. Like if it pulls something from a sidebar that you don't necessarily want, or sometimes if there's content like there's summaries of additional articles or something appears at the bottom, stuff like that, you might have to get out of there. And we're going to do the same thing here where we're going to have Frase analyze the SERP. Again, I'm going to knock it down to the top 10 results. I don't want to use the top 20, but we have to, it initially runs through the top 20 and then you can tell it, I just want the top 10. Let's make sure I took those out. Okay. And again, I would go through here and I would look at which of these do I want, which do I want to get rid of. Okay. And now what it does is it's looking at this piece of content and comparing it to the averages of the top 10. Again, as far as word count, it's saying we're below average, but I would take a look at like the number one result has 1,200 words. Number two then is 2,600, 1,400, 3,400, 1,425, 2,000. Somehow this one's in there with 300 words because, word count doesn't always matter. 3,600. Okay, so in this case, I would say the average probably skews a little higher than this. So we definitely want to probably add some content here. It'll compare how many headers are in your content versus the average in these. And again, I would take a look. So it tries to pull the headings from the content on these pages. You can see like here's the second ranked one and it shows what they have, and there's some H2s. Looks like they have stuff kind of out of order. There's H4, then an H3, then back to the H2s. I would kind of take a look at what other pages are doing with headings. More so, I want to see what they're including in their headings that maybe my page is missing and how they're covering the topic versus I don't worry just about the heading count here. That's not that important to me. Links I don't care about, domain authority, image, I don't care about any of this stuff. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look at the optimized section, and I want to look at the topics. And what this does is, oops, I didn't mean to click that. So it'll show me these phrases, which ones we have in our content, and the average of the top 10 search results. So for example, on average, the top 10 search results are using the word meeting twice, and we don't have it at all in this piece of content. We have meetings once, but not meetings. So what Frase is doing here is helping you if you want to modify your content to make sure that you're including topics and phrases that, or if you want to call them entities, that other pieces of high ranking content are using it as often as they are. So if I wrote somewhere in here, and I'm not going to go through all the content and put it where it belongs, but let's just say agile involves having a meeting every day known as daily stand-ups. In this meeting, you cover, and there you can see now I used it twice and it gives me the green there. And you can go through all the top topics here. You can organize these by clusters. So under projects, it has all these different terms relating to project. You can organize by clusters. You can do long tail terms. So it'll include some of the longer tail entities. And then you can also look at titles, headers, that stuff. SERP scores will then tell you where these terms, how all of these are doing in terms of hitting these entities and optimizing, and it shows your current progress. So yellow is the average score across competitors. Right now, we're at 53%. It's very similar to if you use like Surfer SEO has a scoring system. I don't pay a whole lot of attention to the scoring system, but it's there if that's something that's important to you. I mostly am looking at the topics, the top topics here, and making sure what are we missing. You know, like agile team, to me, that's something that's very relevant to a piece of content about what is agile project management. So I would want agile team. I'd want to make sure that we have that. So like with your agile team, blah, blah, blah. And now we have that. And you can see the SERP score then went up by a little bit, went from 53 to 55. So that's how you use that. Really, all I'm doing with this is I'm trying to make sure that our content is in line with the top content that Google apparently likes and is ranking highly. Now, on page is only a small factor. You know, links and internal and external links play a huge role in whether or not you're going to rank highly. So this isn't going to, take you from ranking number 50 to number 3 in a highly competitive search result page. But what I'm looking to do with this is just make sure that our content is not the reason why we're not ranking, and that our content is in line with the content that Google likes and that Google is ranking highly. Again, most of the time in the SERP, like I'll just take the top 7, top 5 search results instead of the top 10 or top 20, just to give me I think it gives me a little bit more laser focus on what Google likes and what the top content that they're ranking. And there's one other section here that I'll sometimes take a look at when I'm improving content is the questions. And what this is very similar to what we saw in the brief is it's pulling the questions that are being asked in these different pieces of content. And I like to put questions and answers into content. I think that helps you rank for all the people also ask stuff. It'll help you rank for, sometimes it helps you get featured snippets, because a lot of featured snippets are questions. So I like to just take a look, and if I see a common question being asked frequently, I'll make sure that we have it over here. Like, what is agile project management is a popular one, and we have that as the title. How to become agile. There's probably a couple questions, a couple variations of that, like how to get started with agile, how to transition a team into agile, that sort of stuff. I'd probably create a question and a heading around that as well to improve the content. If you want to use it, there's also Wikipedia will list some top ranking pages relating to that search, and you can access these for more information to include in your content. They also have a kind of neat looking concept map. This concept map is very similar to what you may see on Answer the Public, which is if you're familiar with that website, kind of similar, where it has these entities and concepts that you may want to look at and may want to include in your content. So that's basically how I'm using Frase to improve existing content and create article briefs for people I'm consulting with and for writers. In the next video, I'm going to show you how I take those article briefs then for my writers that are working in Jarvis, or if I'm doing any content in Jarvis, and how I use the two together to create better content inside of Jarvis. All right, that's it for this one. We'll see you in the next video.